welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming. But yes, hang on a moment. This is not the live launch. This is a pre-recording, or in fact a post-recording. The launch was last night, but I forgot to press record during my introduction. So I thought it might be good to redo the introduction and stick it at the front of the actual recording. So if anyone's listening to it after the event, then they've got a bit of context. So this is a very brief preamble from me. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you to all those who have already bought a book. It's really amazing, and I'm hugely grateful. Big thanks to all of those who came to the launch, who may have also given a donation with their ticket. All of those funds will go to Rape Crisis Centre and the Samaritans, two vital services who are there for me in my time of need. Love and thanks to Fifth Wheel Press, who's represented in the launch by the lovely visage of Nat Raum, who saw something in this strange little hybrid chap that I made and decided to publish it. So thanks to them for all they do to lift up marginalised voices and offer a space for often difficult subjects. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined for this launch by four wonderful writers whose work I really admire, as well as what they all do themselves individually to support other writers and often to tackle challenging topics in their own work. So join me in the comfort of your own home in providing a huge round of applause, silent or otherwise, to Leia Butler, Stuart McPherson, Raegen Pietrucha, and Nat Raum, who you will all hear read later on. And shout out of thanks also to Louise Mather, who provided a wonderful blurb for the book, but wasn't able to join us to read. So after this, I do a little bit of housekeeping for the Zoom launch, which is entirely irrelevant if you are now watching this after the event. So I will skip that and just run on to say that given that this launch is for a book called Trauma, it's likely that some of the work being read may cover some difficult or uncomfortable themes. I asked the readers to provide a content warning if there's anything that's particularly raw, but consider this as a sort of general one for this reading. Keep yourself safe, feel free to mute or go and take a break or switch it off if you need to. But most importantly, this is not a pity party. This is a celebration of survivorhood, of making it through, of staying inside one's own body, even when it does not feel like home, of moving through a world that frequently feels unsafe, and of choosing to live despite it all. Survivorship is a strength, though it can often feel like failure, and unsilencing ourselves, beating shame and stigma, armed with all these scars and souvenirs, well, that's a fucking superpower. All right, enough of me and this recorded intro, and now I'll let you enjoy the readings and the online launch for Trauma. Thank you for listening. Okay, first up is our first of our wonderful readers this evening, or this afternoon for those that are dialing in from the US, is Nat Raum, who is from the US. Nat is a disabled artist, writer, and genderless disaster from Baltimore. They're a current MFA candidate at the University of Baltimore and also hold a BFA in photography and book arts from the Maryland Institute College of Art. Nat is also editor-in-chief of Fifth Wheel Press and the author of The Abyss is Staring Back, You Stupid Slut, and several chapbooks and photography publications. I'm going to drop Nat's links in the chat, and now hand over to them. Thank you, Nat.
Thank you so much, JP, for hosting, having me, and for sharing your book with Fifth Wheel. Like, I'm really grateful that you decided to take a chance on us because I love this book so much. If you have not gotten your hands on it yet, highly recommend, highly recommend. I mean, I know I'm a little biased, but so I'm going to read 3 poems today. One is from my debut hybrid memoir, You Stupid Slut. And that is basically kind of an exploration of my early 20s, sort of substance abuse and sexual violence, and how those things came together to sort of force me to perform femininity, even though I now exist in a queer body. So a lot of sort of grappling with the ways in which society kind of turns being like a woman presenting into like almost sort of like being a target for violence. So that's something that I explored a lot in that book. And this piece I chose to read for a lot of reasons. But I think after I read the title, it will become very, very clear to everybody why I've chosen to read this piece today. And it has content warnings just kind of for an abstract mention of sexual violence. I, Medusa. What lurks behind my irises, beyond the sea blue whose likeness I haven't seen since the beaches of Barbados? Even then, going on 11, I ignored red-ringed warnings on trees and picked Manzanillas de la Muerte to launch into the sea like softballs. Believing it to be sunburn, I was unfettered at first by scaly swaths of peeling, rashy skin until they nipped at my face well after nightfall, slathered with thick green aloe. And I still don't learn from my mistakes. My instinct is still to throw stones for practice, for the day I need to kiss someone back harder than my lips would let me. I cultivate a steely stare, practice tossing pebbles, then slabs of mica, about the size of those that once left welts on my shins as I swung out over my parents' backyard stream and my best friend skipped rocks underneath me. I grew so at home with stones thrown, I've leaned into chips and bone and a body numbed limb by limb. That chill helps me harden after all, when I'm 19 in a stranger's bed with only a gaze that slices and the bite of my wit, with no snakes but the one I've trained in my beast belly, the lone asp that waits until they can't take it anymore to unleash a venom not unlike a milk-white sap, stinging and seeping into cheeks cracked and pink as a lesser Antilles sunset. Right. So those of you that don't know why I read that piece, Raegen's book is called Head of a Gorgon and is very Medusa-centric. So I was like, I kind of feel like I have to read this one. And then the next two pieces are from a project that I've been working on over the last couple of months. It is like kind of titled right now. I'm tentatively calling this collection of poems, This Book Will Not Save You. And it has really been about kind of my journey towards healing from this sort of CPTSD that was a result of like sort of this early 20s of just repeated sexual trauma, as well as kind of confronting a newer diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And so these pieces discuss trauma, but I don't think there's any sort of like super explicit content warnings other than one piece mentioning death briefly. So the first piece is called Regrets Only. Regret vanity, regret drinking, regret the way your hair hung down to the small of your back until you were almost 24, unkempt and every bit of 2 pounds, and that's just the physical weight of how hot people used to say you were. Regret kissing strangers in Ford Tauruses, regret accepting invitations to foreign beds, staple your regret to the top of your college transcript, proclaim you regret nothing. Don't regret asking whether there was more for you than performing girlhood. Don't regret continuing to ask. Maybe regret how long it took, but don't regret where you come from. Don't regret yourself now, femme-bodied but genderless, cropped hair and wearied knees from years of crawling to where you now stand proudly. Don't regret the body you can still hold, the innate joy of knowing you are supposed to be here. And the next piece, so I've written both of these as part of my time in the MFA program at the University of Baltimore. So this is the last piece that I wrote for my writing workshop this past semester. Tandem tempests. My dilemma, old as flightless fowls have roamed the dirt surface of earth. Which came first, the trauma or the anxiety? Was I dealt blows that made me gnash molars to bone stumps, or was my jaw simply screwed together tight as my Achilles tendons were? Was it how I met death, aged 11? My grandmother, despite a widowmaker, halted his pursuit. So he snatched my friend that winter instead. Is that it? This tremor my fingers fall into, innate or not, is circumstance why they continue to vibrate? Or am I wrong? Am I like this, stoked and thrashing from the womb, choking down nervous murmurs of countless what-ifs my mind broaches? Even now, I can't find a time I've known the difference between these two. I can't find a symptom of one it doesn't share with the other, tandem tempests in a cluttered mind. Right. I went a little faster than I expected, so I may sneak in a little erasure from my book with Kith Books, The Fine Line, just because JP and I are also both Kith authors, and I'm like, maybe a little moment there. So these pieces are from a hybrid micro chapbook that I wrote called The Fine Line. And essentially they combine erotic Polaroids that I took with erasures from like kind of YA teen novels that are sort of questioning the intersections between kink and abuse and sort of how those things manifest. So these are a little sexual, I will say, as a content warning. Nothing is too explicit, but definitely some strong themes of sensuality in this collection. Okay, let's read Screwed. You must rehearse this one. Wind up again, jiggled and chewed, alone on stage. Cry on cue. Faint, maybe even dramatically. Kind hand, careful touch. Why not? Sounds like fun. Thank you all. I just, so everybody is aware, I am going to pop off camera because I am at work right now, but I'm going to throw on headphones and still listen to the reading.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nat. Sorry, I was trying to find the link to The Fine Line because it is a fantastic hybrid chapbook. Thank you so much for your reading. Thank you so much for making it here, despite the fact that you're working. And I hope you can kind of listen in to the rest. So big up also to Kith Books. Well done, Nat. Thank you. I was just about to do that. You're ahead of me. And thank you for that work. Nat is such a prolific writer. I don't think the writer is the right word, just because they do so many different things. So please do definitely check out their work. I've dropped their main links page at the beginning of the chat. So now we move to our next reader, which is Leia Butler. Leia is a poet from London. She has a BA from the University of East Anglia in English Literature and Creative Writing. Her debut collection, Tear and Share, which is a fantastic interactive chapbook, was published by Broken Sleep Books in 2021. And her latest collection is coming out with Stanchion Press next year. Very excited about that. She's a previous winner of the Street Cake Experimental Writing Prize and co-founder and head editor of Full House Literary. I'll drop links in the chat, but very excited to hear Leia read. Over to you, Leia.
Thank you so much, JP. Can you hear me okay? Perfect, great. Thanks so much, JP. I'm absolutely honoured to be invited to read with you and celebrate this beautiful collection. Look at it. It's fantastic if you can see it. It's such a brilliant piece of work, and I feel so lucky to get to know you and work alongside you with Full House and just know you as a wonderful person, which you are. So thank you very much. I'm not going to take up too much of the time. I'm just going to read a couple of pieces. So I'm going to start off reading a few pieces from Tear and Share by Broken Sleep. So I'm just going to read two of those. So this piece is called Until Monday Hits Sunday. Stay away until A is so far from B it couldn't catch up if it tried. Until the 30-hour candle that smells of vanilla burns into hot holly. Until you breathe all the way in and it feels sharper than a fresh pencil, and so far out you fall apart. Until it's cold, you can't see how it will ever be warm again, and you only breathe in clouds. Stay away until Monday hits Sunday and everything in between. Breathe until you've filled up a pink balloon with tired air, and stay away until you can no longer see it floating in the distance. So that's one of them. And then the next one I'm going to read from this collection is called Journey. So they say it takes about 2 hours to get from A to B. A nice, easy journey. 1. Keeping busy by banging knees, painting bruises, ripping the skin off orange peel lips, twisting hair like pulling the cork out of a bottle, because you've got your bags, everything you need, except from what you've left behind. Every mile means more alone. Train track trauma with every scene speeding past. 2. You feel so far, but you can still taste time on your tongue of 2 hours ago when you were in the arm of an embrace and you never felt so much like home. Now, just as fleeting as the grey graffiti you blink and miss that tell stories you'll never read. 3. Must leave it all behind, going forwards, dreaming backwards. So they're the pieces from Tear and Share. And I'm just going to read a few sort of recent pieces that I've been working on that are coming up. So this one is just a really, really tiny one. It was published with Street Cake a while back. And it's sort of like a visual piece, but I'm just going to read the words. It's like if you can imagine, an image of a shadow of myself on some concrete. So I'm just going to read the words that I outline my shadow in. So it's called A Little Bit of Body Text. So, question, why don't you talk more? Do you like saving your words till they explode? Yes or no? Shadows have feelings too? Try taking a step back. Take a picture. If you talk, who will actually hear until the end? That's just a little one there. And then I have a few more small pieces to read. So this one is going to be published in a couple of months, and it's called The Sort of Thing That Wouldn't Happen in the Office. So, but he's left the milk out. I can see it behind his head. And this meeting is due to last an hour. And I want to tell him I cannot stop thinking about the milk, but he's just started talking about budgets and we aren't doing well this year and we need some new ideas. And with that, a condensation just rolling down the carton. And I wonder how this could have happened. And should I say anything in the chat? Like, sorry to interrupt, but I think you may have left your milk out. But everyone is nodding. They're talking about popping up a poll to discuss things further. They're recommending a new Trello board. Can they not see the milk? And I was meant to be taking notes for the meeting, but what the fuck? How can I ignore this? And I think about how my grandma probably had a few pints of milk in her fridge. She never knew she'd never finish them. I don't know what we did with them. But now people are waving and he's saying, there you go, you've got 30 minutes back. But he asks me to stay on the call so we can catch up. And he asks me how I thought it went. And I tell him about the milk and he laughs. Oh, don't worry, there's nothing left in there anyway. So that's just like kind of like a silly one. And then I just have a few more little ones. So these are all upcoming from my stanchion collection. So thank you, JP, for giving me the chance to read out some of these. So this piece is called White and Yellow with Green Pineapples, and this was kindly published by Acropolis Journal. So tonight is an anniversary. Tonight I am ignoring. Tonight the label on the bottle is ripping, and I am not. These are not the right wine vibes. And how can I drink this in front of your face? And you ask me if it tastes nice, and how can I say no when you bought it for me? And you're still smiling, and I imagine your insides, and this is hand wash only, and my fingernails are bleeding. And the next little tiny one, a lot of these pieces are quite tiny. This is called Red Stripes with the Gold Trim. They've always said fuck doesn't fit, sounds wrong coming from my mouth. I can never tell when someone is laughing or crying, when their shoulders shake like birthday jelly, red raw vibrations. The update for today. I'm looking at an exciting world, but I'm not living in it. So I've just got 3 more little ones. So this one is called 3 Wine Things. Tonight, I'm having a blinking contest with a piece of garlic bread. It is soggy with butter, it is saying all the right things, it is better at Scrabble than me, and the winner gets flowers on their grave. So I've just got a few more tiny ones. Thank you for listening so far. This one, it was actually published in Stanchion in one of their latest issues. That was really exciting. And it's called, Was This the Thing That Started It All? We're talking about some of our first memories, and they say things like, my brother bit me, or, and I didn't need the stabilizers after all. Everyone is laughing over 2 p.m. tea and talk. I'm sitting on the bottom step, toes smelling like lavender, top sticking to a slightly wet back. I can hear the crying between gulps and screams and questions. I cannot see it. There are 14 steps between us. Then, in the room that nobody will go in again, us at the bottom trying to hold hands over our ears. And then the only other thing I remember is coming home from school, shaking strangers' hands, dry and damp. And I didn't know the details, but my home had become a hole, sandwiches and shells. And I never saw him again, and I lost her that day too. And yes, I'll have a coffee, please. And then I just have one more. And before I read this, just again, thank you so much, JP, for inviting me to read. Such an amazing collection. I can't wait to reread it over and over again. So this last one's called, Do You Want to Introduce Yourself to the Team? My name is I'm Not Okay. Tomorrow, I might be gone. Today, I'm editing answers and eating a chocolate croissant. Yesterday, I didn't think I'd see you today. In 5 years, I want to be a failure because then I'll have a future. It's not nice to talk to yourself into thinking you're tasting your last cup of tea. You are looking forward to Friday. I don't want to disappoint you. I am going to meet myself now.
Wow, Leia, thank you so much. That was wonderful. What a fantastic range, just generally your range. And I have to be honest, I basically just organised this whole launch just so I could get to hear you read, because although we work together closely, you know, and are in contact with each other several times a week about Full House, we never really get to talk about what we're actually writing in our own work. So it's really lovely to hear you read, and also very exciting to get a preview for some of the stuff that's coming out with the Stanchion collection. So thank you for that. Do you have a month yet? Do you have a date yet for that?
I do not. Stay tuned.
Okay, well, next year sometime. We look forward to it. And apologies to Nat, because I forgot to spotlight you when you read. So clearly my menopausal brain is not able to do too much. So let me spotlight Stuart before I start reading the bio, if that's okay, because then I will forget. So thank you for that, Leia. Next up, we have Stuart McPherson, one of my favourite contemporary poets. Stuart is a prize-winning poet and artist from the UK. His debut full-length collection, Obligate Carnivore, was published by Broken Sleep Books in 2022, and his second collection, End Ceremonies, is out this August, also from Broken Sleep. He has been published in more places than I have time to list, and last October he won the Ambit annual poetry competition. Stuart, can I ask, do you have can we pre-order yet for End Ceremonies? Is it out yet?
Not yet. A couple more weeks and then pre-orders will be up. So yeah. All
right, I shall put your links into the chat, but now handing over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, JP. Evening, everyone. Lovely to see everyone here for the launch of JP's books. I kind of first met JP as part of the Full House crew, and just huge admiration for for JP just as a writer and supporter, I think, of the literary community. And I think that it's it's wonderful to be asked to read at a launch, particularly when the book itself, I think, is so important. And I think in terms of the subject matter, the more these things are shared and talked about and that we confront, I think that the more we create dialogue around it, and we help to accept ourselves and to support others. So congratulations, JP. I'm so happy to see this book out in the world. I'm going to read maybe 2 poems, maybe 3. They're both, the first 2 poems are quite long. First one is from my debut collection, and it's called Self-Esteem Calendar. I've never actually read this poem before, so apologies if I balls it up. But this poem is about kind of looking at the impact of trauma, and kind of on the family and the self, both as a child and as an adult. 13 months in a year is bad luck. The summer was blown glass pinched across a morning's neck. A potential of orange light laced with ice, lemon. short-lived as sunsets, or parts of the body weakened by falling. Its fractured ankles were oblique and painfully displaced. The heat when it broke. Buddleia twisted upwards, elk horns dipped in violet stooped above a hosepipe kink. A butterfly, an accent smeared across the late afternoon, unable to wrap it around my arm the way he wanted. An imperfect figure eight, forever looped. You were equidistant to the curve, a circle of birthdays or a sprung saddle, an invisibility spell. Not late, just somewhere else you'd rather be. We played party games, pass the parcel. The calendar of my youth creased gently in between each sheet. A hand in November's. Under bedspreads, 3 bodies, 2 older than the other. On the lines of a polis where it held its scent, the remnants of a harbour, or the afterword, its gutters. Curled around the edges, a face between legs, and caught amongst words vented in false surprise and sickening by the bedside. Small palms. A hint of curdled milk. The pretense of rescue attempts always coming to nothing. On December 25th, glue latex to a cheek. Apply blood with fingers. Run and sit beneath the tryptophan tree and let vampire teeth cut the corners of your mouth. A boy, though, or a warning. Just slightly less alive than. There are questions I want to ask about illusions. How bed springs feel on your back. About the instruments used to prise yourself away, a claw hammer, an oyster knife. I want to talk about seasons and if you pressed your eye to the lens. Lined up my winter cheeks, my summer shorts. What about black pearls? How the shucker pierced your mantle. You're closer to the sea now and twisted inside a bottleneck. A potion, bat's ears, poison ivy, the one that turns people into smoke. I think about the space you fill between walls and furniture, between months. I wonder if you knew your daughter died, that the rest of us were mangled, run over, struck by lightning. A faintness of rubber and blood, the tread filled with yellows, reds, brittle white. My questions are whole grated cleanly in temporal plates as I wonder, do you even remember me? My spring maths problem is a misshapen set of seeds. A dandelion growing in a blown balloon, encased. Impenetrable as amber, as drilled mosquitoes. To sample DNA is absent lucidity. How roots eventually find water. A discarded tuber can fill a room. Its ugly green leaves, white pinpricked petals. Hold me in your hands. Comfort me with talk of freedom, the sinew of decision hanging from your teeth. Bad wolf in a madness of lengthening grass, smeared crimson breaths, a discarded rotting carcass, the annihilation of a pack. I will continue to accelerate until all of this fuel, this body, has been extinguished. Your fist leads a bicep, leads the tendons in your neck, mountainous. The stretch of skin tarpaulined across the well of you, amorphous. Your teeth within my daughter's arm and mine. I float upon your waters, your depths. She bathes me in the licorice, the root of all our discontent. I crack my knuckles, the clicking in my jaw, vibrato, collecting remnants as I chew. In the house, April held him. Stop crying or I'll make it so you never want to come back. April was unexpectedly cold for that time of year. Still occluded, February snow. Outside sat October. Stop crying or I'll make it so you never want to come back. October was unexpectedly cold for that time of year. October never held anyone. I don't remember the month. The windows were covered in wings and the walls. It's discourteous to lie to your mother. I remember them hurting as they fell. The earthworms, food for a snake, and foaming on the curtains. To give semblance to truth, explain the hydraulics of long bodies crawling through rings. Like scars as the god of war rained down, and I lied to dry myself off. What is a calendar? Other than self-realization condensed backwards into paper. Thank you. Just got to have a quick swig of the old Tango Paradise Punch, which is the poet's drink of choice, apparently. Okay, so this that was a poem in 13 parts. This is a poem in 15 parts, so apologies. This is called Consequential Ways to Change Yourself, and this is really about when you're dealing with the impact of trauma and trauma responses, the kind of some of the bad advice that people give, not intentionally, but just some of the kind of self-help that you get that actually can sometimes miss the mark, and it's kind of about that. So yeah, this is Consequential Ways to Change Yourself. Curl yourself into the lantern of a wasp. Sing songs about knives, common hymns of salvation. Unenlightened, crawl outwards onto the back of an apple. Some chewing, a clicking. Engage in unexpected conversation, cannibalism, the undead. 1970s exploitation cinema as a vehicle for distinct personal change. Pedestrianized requirement, intestinal realism. Structured swimming sessions, embrace chlorination to dissolve mind-body partitions. Handcuffed at the blue slope, feel the warm water rush in. Antelopes rolled by a crocodile. Track macronutrients, attempt to love the body. Hold devices to your skin so completely powerless between every known witching hour. Creep from cauldrons, snack like a young cub. Talk about the colour of clothes, shape and depth. Analyse shade-related perpetual imagery. Man beats woman, woman fights child, child beats them both to death with ball lightning. Nature as the terrible mother you always had. Spend time in inconsolable forest fires. Pull away meat from the back of a sad animal. Hemlock longs in the throat. Orange sunsets are ironic. Craft programs to embroider a flag with deities. Fly it above the cracked beams of your forever home. Meaningful crystals fill up the attic space. Garnet coagulant, amethyst birthstones. To be completely open, install a zipper from sternum to pubis. Sex falls out, as do the genitals, as does the heart. Grind the remnants on a millstone, a broken horse with no steel shoes. Ask for help as often as required. Most relevant internet sites give a 15% discount on your first lonely coffin. Sizing facilities on site are always available, for platinum customers only. Help others forge keys from forged metal, distribute with complementary mythical creatures, a sublimated gorgon, Quetzalcoatl giving sword demonstrations for scared villagers. Implement reward sequences, 50-minute pain threshold, a coupon to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Gorge, sequester, fill a wardrobe with everyday inaction, some calorific night terrors. Let physics settle on your tongue like snow, absorbent, a cold transparency. Surrender to the stomach folding in its cavity, or an emergency exit at the expense of never-ending nothingness. Self-care, a selection of pine-scented soaps. Exfoliant approach reminiscent of the poltergeist bathroom scene. Pull off your own face. Poke your fat down a plug hole under hot spotlights. Paranormal to YouTube algorithm ratios. Substitute humour for orbs, a face in a window. Abandoned hospital, heavy sinks. Write scripts. Politely whisper into new recording equipment. Crucial time with your family. Look them in the eyes and have them repeat, "You're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. You're going. You go. Go you." Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for listening. Congratulations, JP.
Wow, thank you, Stuart. That was just incredible. I think we're all kind of just a bit gobsmacked emotionally from that, which is fantastic. Always a joy to hear you read, and thank you for choosing those. They felt entirely appropriate for tonight, and thank you so much for all your support and for this book. Fantastic. Well, this has been such a great night of poetry. I hope people are enjoying, and still 2 to come. So next up, let me spotlight you, Raegen. Next up is Raegen Pietrucha, who writes, edits, and consults creatively and professionally. Her debut full-length poetry collection, Head of a Gorgon, was published by VA Press, whilst her debut poetry chapbook, An Animal I Can't Name, won the 2015 Two of Cups press competition. She received her MFA from Bowling Green State University, where she was an assistant editor for Mid-American Review, and is currently writing a memoir. Raegen, I'll drop your links in the chat again. And I noticed that Stuart referenced Gorgon in his last poem, so it felt like wonderful serendipitous segue from one to the other there. So I was so grateful that you're joining us from the US, and thank you for your support for this. I can't wait to hear you read. Over to you.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on such an amazing release for Trauma. And I was glad to be one of the early viewers of it. Very exciting stuff. And thank you for everybody who came before me. So tough acts to follow, but at least I'm going before JP. So thank you to everybody who came out today. And yeah, I'm actually kind of not surprised that a lot of people have kind of touched on Medusa in one way or another, because I think, especially with respect to trauma in contemporary times, the story is very relatable. And certainly that's what I've done in my book, which is Head of a Gorgon. I've brought it into contemporary times with a focus on the sexual violence aspect of it. So this is a trigger warning that this work will cover that, albeit not explicitly, but that is the subject of the 3 poems primarily that I'll be reading from the book today. And then I like to incorporate, I usually try to incorporate something from somebody else, and I will be ending on something that is a little bit more lighthearted. So maybe the opposite of trauma. So I'm going to start with a poem called Cheer. And one thing to note in my sort of reimagining of the myth of Medusa, I imagined a childhood for her. So abuse carries throughout her life in this reimagining. So this poem is called Cheer. The only words I feel safe speaking, I scream alongside a team, combining them with sharp chops and kicks, a killer smile. 11 girls and I devote our weekdays to memorizing litanies of victory, and our boys spring higher each year as if our words are manna. Atop the pyramid, held like a house on a rock, my faith never wavers. I feel the girls' mass will always lift me as it does the team, soaring, however briefly, above enemies, undefeated, untouchable, immaculate. And on the weekends, when I can manage to get away from him, I run far past the fence out back, hide my practice, a zealot casting spells, hoping the right words paired with the right actions will someday help me take some form of flight, recalling perfectly the patterns and tracks, vital when you're the only one who's coming to your defense. This next poem is part of a 6-part poem that's a dialogue between Medusa and Poseidon. So this one is M's lesson at the ranch. Medusa's never named in the book. She goes by M. What desert reminds me? Secrets can hide from outsiders, but not from my body. Its curves consumed by sand, heels up to thighs, back, and clinging sweaty to my neck. What if I say more? Cows don't know they're fed fat for slaughter. Their calves will forget them. This knowledge won't change the patchwork of hide and land that cloaks daily affairs, like the quilt you lie over, not under us, gnats swimming in our humidity. What desert reminds me? Secrets can hide from outsiders, but for how long? The hurts my mouth blurts betray but don't end your quest. The sand is shadowing, turning a bolder version of itself. You're bolstered over me, stained by sweat, sun, dusty stalks of electrified straw. The sun falls and all I can do is try to find something sharper than the pain. Clouds above unravel sky like hides ripped, revealing the red of an animal I can't name. After, I sit in a tub with no water. Then I sit on a porch. It's morning once more. A herd speaks from the distance, too far to see. The land remembers its lot and feeds it. The earth remembers its purpose, continues to break beneath teeth. And this poem is called Raven Father. You didn't make me raven, Father, unkindness did. You didn't see who split your girl too soon from the shell, couldn't hear the shivers of downless skin. You only ever saw me after these dark-hinged wings. A double life already begun. One father, 2 masters, but sentry, I had none. I was so happy you sat with me, Father, in hospital. Diagnosis, half raven with 2 brains raining my head, flapping, falling back through memory, finding only endless twisted slacks. Half raven with black breast cracked open, blue tumor beating back forth back behind viperous ribs. Unkindness, it seems, runs in this blood. Halves foreign to each other struggle to fit, incurably different. You asked me what I saw in my reflection once, Father, not knowing the tenor of your question. When I'd perch before a surface, I'd mostly notice shadows, what stuck with things beneath a shined light. You said, you can tell me anything. I'd waited 2 lifetimes for any man's kindness to reach me, and I returned it, tucked words no bird should ever know under tongue. Fledglings can't be heroes, Father. The small don't dare spring with unversed wings. They recite terms they've heard but can't grasp, rattles demanding salvation, deliver us from. How swiftly a flock of unkindness will wizen us. Then we pray for age or an end, invent reticent melodies, peck and peck at our binding ties. You'd be so proud now, this sharp beak of mine. Split for collision, my halves now collaborate, fray unkindness's grip like scissors. Father, sometimes I saw your black pain flapping, but birds can never remain in sky. Why should I name who happened? Could that ever measure their infinite unkindness? Let me share these notes instead. Forgive what I've hidden in this odd soldered shell. Trust the blind flight alongside shadows I must shepherd. Your daughter's a crux, but recovered from the squall, resolved, shaping a haven with these pitchy songs. And now this is from my colleague, Brad Aaron Maudlin. His book, Everyone at This Party Has Two Names, which you might have heard of the poem, What You Missed That Day You Were Absent from 4th Grade. I think it was on the Slowdown, that Ada Limon podcast or whatever. So that poem is in this book, but this poem that I'm about to read you is actually my favorite. I love both poems, of course, but this one's called It Was Inevitable. And there's a little question in italics right beneath the title, and it reads, what keeps us from falling off the earth? We should have known, what with all the mid-American grandmothers on roller skates, pushing strollers full of quadruplets, impatient for their first girlfriends and second master's degrees, Wall Streeters buy-selling, bull-dealing on their cell phones, their neckties flapping behind them, not to mention schoolgirls, ears crammed with earbuds, eyes crammed with manga graphic novels, sardining into Tokyo subways, into subway cars that zoom and depart before the girls can say, Ohio gozaimasu. It was only a matter of time and mathematics. Pythagoras or Descartes from freshman algebra proved it, that the second would come when the whole global teeming mass would rush eastward in the same heartbeat, and their combined weight, mass, density would speed the ever so subtle twirl of Earth and cause it to spin top at a rate of exponential increase. An increase that begins so softly we barely perceive it at first. Alarm clocks blare too early one morning. Coffee cups are bare before they've done their job, and my drive to work is pleasantly brief despite traffic. We think it's just a fluke and smile when we've concluded more than the usual amount of stapling, and it's already coffee break. And it's not until 3 coffee breaks later, when anchormen are barking from the screen in the break room, that we know what happened. Reactions and reaction times vary, we are told. An Australian is in critical condition. He chucked a boomerang, and before he could reach for it or duck, it smacked him in the forehead. Kenyan track Olympians are thrilled breathless, whole milliseconds shaved off their sprint times. Tokyo technologists have unveiled music players that compress songs, so not a single lyric or syllable is missed. The 60 seconds around the world news feature is done in 48. And I call you, say, didn't we learn about this in freshman algebra? And by the time I invite you to dinner at the Cambodian restaurant, we're already there. And before you can accuse me of flirting with the waitress, she's handed us our check and shooed us to the street, where I lean to smooch you goodnight, but you're at home, fetal positioned in your lilac pajamas. And I'm at work stapling, and I sneeze and miss my break. And tomorrow's stapling duties are on my desk before noon. And the news reports spew words I can't follow about the rapid division of skin cells, hair cells, tooth cells, before cutting to 11 or 12 wrinkle cream commercials and a congressional advisory about the overburdening of Social Security. And just as I notice that my desk is taken over by gray hair that might be mine, a jewelry store street vendor corners me in the parking lot. Hey, it's my lucky star day. Coal is turning into diamonds hourly, forcing prices way down. These prices are so low, they have to look up to look down. And I better get my BGem ballpoint pen set before all the grad school quadruplets snatch them up. And he's got to earn a living. Could I help him out? After all, he used to be a marriage counselor, but he's out of work, what with divorce rates and commitment phobia skyrocketing. And did I hear the wrinkle cream companies are hosting an all-you-can-eat buffet at Pythagoras' grave? And I'm too startled to answer because we're zipping towards the overhead telephone pole. And I grab for my life and I'm latched onto a phone wire, feeling hundreds of people asking, what happened? Beneath my fingers. Centrifugal force, they say. Not centrifugal force, lack of centripetal force, yells my flying by freshman physics teacher into her cell phone. And I'm watching her dodge blue jays and wondering where you are and how much longer I can hold on with the arthritis I'm developing. When I see you up ahead, struggling and clinging to the same wire. Wind and blue jays and lightning bugs bump at your shaky wrist, but you refuse to break grip. You tug of war towards me, yard by yard. And maybe it's clairvoyance or the phone lines, but somehow I know one of us will always find the other. And this is why I say your name aloud in empty rooms, why I believe in love in the 21st century. And when you reach me, it's dawn, and everything is impossibly yellow and full. And the daybreak clouds are throwing us a congratulations party. And everyone at this party is you and me. And I'm balancing one knee on the wire. And in my free hand, I ask you with a 1995 gold ring. And the second I open my mouth, you say, from this day forward. Thank you.
Fantastic, Raegen. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear you read your work, and very generous of you to offer us something from another writer as well. Would you mind putting, because I didn't catch it, would you mind putting their details in the chat in case anyone is interested? Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. So last up, it's me. So it's very hard to follow such a fantastic range of writers, so I will really do my best. Now, looking at the time, I'm probably going to go over about 5 minutes, so just flag that up now in case anyone needs to leave. Totally understand if you need to do so. Obviously, that does mean that you are obligated to buy the book if you have to leave early. So, sorry, I shall remove Spotlight from you, Raegen. I shall put it on me. And it's kind of weird to read my own bio, but I'll just do a very, very quick one in case anyone doesn't know who I am. I'm JP Seabright. I'm a queer disabled writer living in London. I have 2 solo pamphlets published, Fragments from Before the Fall and No Holds Barred, and the collaborative works Gender Fucks and Machinations. I will attempt, before I forget, to put my links in the chat, and now let's crack on. So thank you again so much to everyone for just being here, for supporting this. For those who've actually bought the book, this is Trauma. This is what it looks like. That is my face. Obviously, now my face is on there not because I have that much ego, but because it's a kind of fairly raw, vulnerable picture, and we kind of felt that that it worked for the material. I took it as a selfie, I think last summer, and the thing is, every time now I look at it, I just notice the massive spot that's on my nose. But anyway, huge thanks again to Nat and Fifth Wheel Press for getting behind this and publishing it. So I'm only going to read from Trauma tonight, and Trauma is an abecedarian chapbook. That's a pamphlet for the Brits amongst you, in that it's in alphabetical order, which was appealing to me as a lapsed librarian. And it kind of riffs on the idea of Traum in German, which means dream, and trauma from the Greek, which is where the English get the word from, which means wound. So I wanted to explore, with a mix of sort of text poetry, visual poetry, prose, some photographs, this sort of almost kind of hallucinogenic, dreamlike, or nightmares in my case, sort of state that chronic complex PTSD can do to the brain and the body. So it's not a self-help book, that's probably apparent by now, but neither is it simply a collection of rape poems, though that topic is in there. And I have written about those experiences before, and no doubt will write about them again at some point. But I wanted to focus more on this sort of disorientating overwhelm of life, sort of post an incident like that, sometimes decades later when you least expect it. So it does touch on alcohol abuse, self-harm, suicide attempts, depression, etc. Lots of fun stuff like that. So there's a whole list of content warnings for you. But I wanted to try and do it in a kind of almost playful way. I'm not sure that's the right word. That's not because I'm not trying to make light of any of those experiences, of course, or to comment on anyone else's experiences of those things or anyone else's trauma, but my own. But to try and look at them from another angle, I guess, partly with the distance of many years, and now finally feeling like a survivor rather than as a victim. So, on that note, the first one I'm going to read is called Content Warning. It's Traum/C, C for content warning. This one does contain sort of very mild references to self-harm and body horror, I guess. Haunted by the image in Un Chien Andalou, where a blade is drawn across her eye, I sense that I too may pick up a razor and accidentally slice into my pupil. Pursued by the scene in Pi, where he trepans himself in the bathroom mirror, I fear I'll slip with the toothbrush or tweezers and gouge a hole to let fugitive thoughts escape. Carjacked by the concept in Crash, where strangers' hands trace puckered dents of bodywork, I caress my own bruises, scars, and broken parts. Sometimes a collision is the only way I know how to connect. Okay, moving on. So this next one is D, for dumb terminal, and this is kind of attempt to talk about depression and mental health, and to sort of make it funny. That obviously it's not funny, so I'm not wishing to make light of it, but it's essentially taking the piss out of myself. Dumb terminal. I bought one of those idiot guides, secondhand, a dumbass guide to having a nervous breakdown. It had been well used, thumbed, let's say. There were a couple of pages missing, but they didn't seem important. I'd got the gist of it. First, collapse into a fit of exhausted weeping. Then blame everyone around you for being difficult and uncaring and not understanding the pressures you're under. Third, get into bed and stay there for several days. Longer, ideally, a couple of weeks at least. Next, attempt to get a grip. Then fail at this, disastrously, causing hives, insomnia, addiction to alcohol or over-the-counter herbal remedies. Sixth, make an appointment to see the doctor. To get some proper drugs. Something must clearly be wrong, far more wrong than you originally anticipated, for which pharmaceutical assistance is required. Cancel the appointment, go back to bed. 10, lose track of numbers, days and weeks, your name and whether you've eaten anything yet that day. After a while, remake the appointment. See the doctor, tell them whatever will make them give you something, anything. Take the pills, slip into sleepless daytime oblivion. Watch a lot of TV. Consider therapy. Discover there's a 9-month waiting list, but that's only if you're suicidal. Otherwise, it's 15 months. Consider whether you may in fact be suicidal. Determine not yet. Go online looking for self-help books and blogs. Discover one is too tired to read anything properly anymore. Go back to bed. This last step can be repeated indefinitely until starvation or eviction occurs. Consider the very real option of starving to death, as your HR department have decided to proceed with a disciplinary and dismissal process due to your lengthy sick leave. Determine whether being jobless means you need to go and live with your parents. Reconsider suicide as a more viable option. Collapse into a fit of exhausted weeping. Who knows how this ends? It could go either way, and invariably does. Determine that the answer must be on those missing pages. Thank you. And excuse me, I now need to cough. Okay, so next up is F for fractured. Now, fractured kind of, for me, sort of forms the heart of the book. Obviously, it's not in the middle because F is not in the middle of the alphabet. And it was my attempt to directly tackle an experience of rape. And I guess to find a way to tell that story, but to do it in a way that conveyed this fracturing of self and a sort of and the way that memory and your mind gets fractured, your sense of self after a traumatic incident. Now, I am going to read a very, very small fraction of this right at the start. It's not going to touch on anything particularly explicit, but that is to give you the context for it. Fractured. I remember brief moments, fractured fragments, scratched images, photographs fading, curling over time. Nothing is clear. Everything disjointed. I cannot be certain. I cannot be what is truth, fiction, memory. Imagined feelings, fleeting, fractured. I cannot do it justice. There is no justice. A train, a carriage rocking sideways slightly. A short, slow train rocking slowly across the Midlands. Cheap tickets purchased in advance. It is September. I know that. It is early afternoon. I am bleeding, bleeding still from the night before. We are sitting at a table together, my best friend and me. I get up again, go to the toilet. I don't know what to do about the blood. I wipe and wipe at myself, hoping it will stop, hoping it doesn't show. I return to the table. We barely speak, my best friend and me. But she knows. I'm sure she knows. Okay, I think I've got 2 more, maybe 3 more. If that's okay with everyone. So next up is P, and this is for PTSD in Tetra Tech. And this is an attempt to have, I guess, convey 4 different scenes or feelings kind of in relation to each other in the way that you do with a kind of triptych painting. In this case, it's 4. You split me, 2 halves cupped in your hands like a peach, standing over the sink, dripping from fingers and lips. Bite into me, eat me alive in the kitchen, bent over backwards to meet your eye. One day, I would like to wake, open my bedroom door and not expect to find a strange man standing there, armed with ill intent. One day, I would like to wake. Your blood, sticky on my hands like spent, dreamt sperm. Misplaced molecules smeared on my body seep through the cracks, infect me with your venom. My blood, sticky on your hands. What doesn't kill you makes you hunger, makes you yearn for feasting on your own traumatized flesh. Okay, now I haven't looked at any of the comments, so I hope I'm not going too fast or people can hear me. If there are any of those comments, then shout out and let me know. Next up is Traum/R, which is for The Refusals. And this is a poem after Hannah Gamble. I should have found her link and put it in the chat so you can read the original. It's much better than mine. But this was something that I wrote in a workshop that Broken Sleep arranged, and it was led by Andrew Macmillan. So thanks to him and for the opportunity to join that workshop. The Refusals. My face refused me, so I turned it off, so I'd no longer have to look at it. My eyes disowned me, so I plucked them out. No need to wipe these tears of disbelief. My hand disallowed me, so I cut it off, so it could not hurt me anymore. My guts disemboweled me, so I scooped them out. Now I can hunger without feeling. My heart rejected me, so I ripped it out, so I'd no longer have to make pretend. My cunt penetrated me, so I fucked myself. No need to always be left wanting. My mouth disgusted me, so I swallowed it whole, so I would not need to feed on my mind, traumatizing me with its false, myopic vision of the world and all its refusals. But enough about me. How are you? Okay, one final cough, excuse me. So the last one I'm going to read is the last one in the book, and I'm going to read it from the book. I don't know why, I just feel like I want to read it from the actual pages rather than the screen, so I hope that works. This is a sort of bookend for the kind of intro type piece at the beginning, where I kind of discuss this concept, I suppose, of trauma, dream and wound. So it sort of is in response to that. So it's Traum/Z or Traum/Z for the Americans in the room. And it's called Sie flüstern, which is German for whisper. We are all visitors, day trippers to this moment of time and place, of memory, body, dream, trauma. I always seem to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And by place, I mean my body, and by time, I mean my life. I lost my voice. I silenced myself. I turned inwards, gagging myself, suffocating my sighs, ignoring the signs, keeping quiet, just like I was told to. Keeping stumm, dumb, numb, keeping the trauma locked inside. I lost myself. I silenced my voice. And this is how your life can end. Not with a bang, but a whisper. As unlocked trauma heals or blisters, I learn not to rub salt in the wound. I hold my whole self in my arms and gently whisper, it's not your fault. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting this book.